Okay, so today's Lunch and Learn will be meeting the Chesapeake Fibershed. I welcome and delighted to have Mary and Bruno and Kirsten. Um, Kirsten, how do you pronounce her name?
Zerbrigg, thank you for asking.
Yep. Of the Chesapeake Fibershed. So we were delighted that both are able to participate and share the great initiatives that they're doing with the Chesapeake Fibershed. Um, Before we start the lunch and learn, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the message chat. We'll be monitoring any messages there or questions if you have them, and then we'll do a Q&A after this after their presentation. My name is Javi Sanchez. I'm a project coordinator with the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, the DSOBD. We are the principal DC agency helping support and promote our DC-based local and small businesses here in the District of Columbia. We do that through, what we're doing right now, Lunch and Learns, and other resources that is available, such as access to capital, small business technical assistance, and other programs that we provide here at the SOBD. I'll type in our contact information and the website so that you can explore more on if you're a business here or if you're looking to relocate here your business here in the District of Columbia. We also offer referrals to for individuals or entrepreneurs, businesses who are looking to set up shop here in DC. ReFashion. So ReFashion is an initiative that was launched this year in 2024, basically that focuses on 4 fashion sustainability areas. That's fashion tech innovation, re-commerce, textile upcycling alternatives, and fashion empowerment, all to support the growth of the fashion economy here in Washington, D.C., but also to reduce the fashion industry's environmental impact here locally and beyond D.C. And so currently, ReFashion provides agency for community building, resource education sharing, and vital networking to DC-based fashion designers and businesses that are bringing commercial viable solutions through circularity and sustainable business models. And so, if there is a email site a website where you can sign up for alerts for any upcoming events, projects, or funding opportunities that we have in the pipeline for ReFashion. And I also put that in the link in the chat as well. So without further ado, I'm glad to introduce Marion, and Marion, floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having us, and welcome to everyone. And we're excited that you want to learn a little bit more about the Chesapeake Fibershed. We do have a small slide presentation with a little technical glitch to it, but bear with us, and we'll start that. But I also want to have Kirsten introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. Mostly happy to make connections between the work we're doing and the work that you all are doing. So yeah, I look forward to what this start of conversations will bring. So yeah.
Thanks, and we can start with the slides. And for everyone out there, feel free to ask a question at any time, because this is about conversation between us. as Javi pulls this up, and apologies for it not being in the format that we would hope, the Chesapeake Fibershed was founded about 5 years ago. We are an affiliate of fibershed.org, which was started, oh, thank you very much. It was started quite a while ago by Rebecca Burgess out in California, who tried to figure out, could she source her wardrobe within 150 miles of her home in California? And it proved to be a very daunting task. She ended up meeting artisans and farmers. And through that process and her project, she came up with this conversation about, what are we wearing? Where are these processes done? Where is your clothing made? And it sparked a movement that's been pretty amazing over all these years. Fibershed is a nonprofit. There are now 79 affiliates of Fibershed around the world, and everyone's focused in their own way, using the resources within their region to promote an equity-focused regional and land-based regenerative fiber and dye system. And part of that is also to address the fast fashion impact on this world, which has been intense by any measure. The next slide. So with Fibershed, the idea is to think about your clothing in a soil to soil way. Not only are these regenerative systems, it's the idea that what we make should be able to go through the system, pollute as little as possible, and be able to be returned to the soil and composted. That's no small feat. It requires all of us looking at the labels in our clothes. They're also promoting climate beneficial agriculture, what renews carbon into the soil to help some of the global warming that we've been seeing. And also to make us a lot more aware of what are we wearing? Where does it come from? What is its source? And also really help support this journey to slow fashion, which all of you are a part of. And so with this soil to soil diagram in mind, they've come up with various programs. And we're one of the affiliates that are trying to implement these programs in using the methods that we have here. The next slide kind of shows our region. We are a 501c3. We just became a nonprofit this last year. We're trying to build a regional network and build a community around local dyes, local fiber, and local labor. It's the environmental practices, as well as trying to keep it's our footprint down. Kirsten, feel free to add anything that you would like at this point.
Oh, you're doing a wonderful job.
Okay. So by trying to buy local, giving stories to our cloth, making our cloth valuable to us, we like to think of our movement as something like, and we've all heard of farm to table, that you want to buy your food regionally because it matters. It matters that it's healthier, it supports your local region, but also we should think farm to closet for what we're putting on our bodies. Was it made locally? Are we supporting the people around us? And are we using fibers and dyes that will not harm our planet? So to do that, the next slide, please. We have several initiatives that we've been working on over the last few years. The first is trying to figure out, what do we have here? Back when NAFTA became prevalent, most of the manufacturing of clothing went offshore because of lower EPA standards and less expensive labor. So we're trying to map and see what we do have left in our region. We also are trying to promote a product checklist. I think clothing needs to have a story, and it's good for us to all understand where our clothes come from. So that using a checklist to let people see the source of their clothing. We've done a lot of work here in our region because we don't have much by way of manufacturing mills. We do have natural dye resources here. And Kristen will address a lot of that because that is something she's worked a great deal on. But we also try to put on our website that we have upcycling resources. And we'll talk a little bit about our Sustainable Cloth Challenge, which also has a stream to using upcycled resources. Another initiative that's now in its second year is the Chesapeake Fibershed Flax Project, trying to figure out if we, as well as producers in our region, can grow commercial amounts of flax to make linen. And it's a fabulous fabric for those of you who are familiar with it. And part of our educational process is our Sustainable Cloth Challenge. We've now had our third year, and it's challenging people around us, be it makers, producers, anyone with an interest, to make using local materials, as well as use recycled materials, as well as borrow from other fiber shed if it's something that we don't have here. So these are the ways that we're trying to reach out to people to really bring out the word about the local fiber and regional economy. So the next slide. So in mapping our fibershed resources, years ago, we started out with multiple surveys to figure out how many mills that we had in the region, shearers, producers, makers. And from that, that stayed pretty static for a while. But last year we got a small grant that's going to allow us to do a more interactive directory, which it's on our website, but it's not as functional as we would like it. But I do encourage you to take a look. And a directory is not about inventory or just a list of what you can find, but it's really going to help, we believe, to connect people to each other. You'll be able to research by what fiber are you looking for, someone who can sew, does someone have natural buttons that can be used? And also, this is helping us assess the gaps and the needs in our regional fiber system. As I mentioned, we don't have manufacturing mills, but we do have some small processing mills here in the region. And one of the things we're trying to do is find a way to bring greater processing back into the local region. And in our fiber shed, that's Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and DC. But we're also trying to work with other fiber sheds along the East Coast because some of the cost of these manufacturing facilities are very high and milling facilities. So what we're trying to do is find a regional way to advocate for and support that structure so that people don't have to go halfway around the world to get their products made. So we do have a survey on our website that you are all welcome to go in and fill out. It will record you, and we have an interactive map on the webpage, as well as it will list you as someone who is located within the fiber shed. And so I hope you'll be willing to do that. The next slide. I've left this slide in here because this was what we found about 5 years ago. And as you can see, we have several farmers, but these are all small producers. Most of them are producing wool of some type, not all of it ultrafine merino, but wool comes in various breeds and can be used for all sorts of things. Our processing mills are mostly small. They are what they call mini mills that have very small production. Many of them are located on alpaca farms. We've found 42 fiber retailers, people who sell directly to the public. There are fiber arts guilds, which are great ways to connect to other makers and also to producers. There are sheep breeders associations that many of our producers belong to. They are usually split up based upon the type of wool or the breed of the sheep that's being bred. Then we have fiber festivals in our region. The primary one is the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival in Maryland, West Friendship Heights, Maryland, every May, the first weekend in May. There are several other smaller ones, and those are great ways to go connect to suppliers and to see what else is being made. One of the difficulties, if you've ever been around much by the way of wool, is getting your sheep sheared. There are not many shearers in our region. We have a few natural dye growers. Some of them are nurseries, some of them are farms. It's a great source of natural dyes. 84 makers reached out to us to say that they make, many of them through the Fiber Arts Guilds. And then we did, sorry about that, 3 people identified as pattern makers, and we have 3 people who identified as button makers. And they do both wood and ceramic buttons. And then we also have a variety of schools and educational resources in our area. And those range from like Virginia Commonwealth, which has a sustainable fashion program, to other schools like Virginia Tech that has agriculture. And then there are also smaller resources where classes are offered. Next slide.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
Marion mentioned, add your name to the list. And that's a list that is always growing. And obviously, I'm sure there are many designers that can be added to this list. And it's not only a way for us to see, but for you to see who's out there. So it's a community resource.
So one of the things that we've been promoting for people who make or produce within our region is a product checklist. And our producer members can use this checklist. This was developed by a farmer who also spun wool. And it's an idea that giving people the story of the journey of their clothing. And the next slide, please. It shows basically where was the fiber, where was the dye stuff made. This follows that soil to soil diagram that I showed earlier. And basically letting people know, was that done here and was it not? And so people sort of see it takes a lot to get a product to market. And I do think that letting people know the story of what it takes to get there helps them identify with their clothing and believe that it is something to be valued. The next slide shows the product checklist on some throws that were made here. It's local wool. It was actually sent to Massachusetts for the looming and processing, and then brought back here for finishing. So it's a great way to let people know that things are local. So the next slide, please. We have a producer program where we have memberships where people who they aspire to local production, and they can put a tag on their products that show that the fiber is farmed or raised here, that the dye was farmed or raised here, that the labor was sourced within the fiber shed. And we currently don't have fine gauge wool mills or cotton mills here. So that can be sent out along with notions used on a product and still qualify as sort of a fiber shed product. And then we use these guidelines so that people can help identify where that product came from. Next slide. So Kirsten, please take over.
Yeah, so we've been developing an online resource looking at working with natural plant dyes and mineral dyes. And so if you go onto our web page, we have a number of resources there. But in addition, we've been working on creating a physical book, which can be lent out or taken to festivals or schools as a means for people to sort of hands-on take a look at samples of wool, cotton, and I think we did linen as well, dyed using plants. And so for this last year, we've focused on 14 different plant stuffs or different plants, essentially, and we organized it seasonally, looking at the fall and looking at oak trees or acorn dye and goldenrod, black walnuts, pokeberry. And then in the winter, we did a focus on kitchen compost, or what you might look at normally as waste. So we looked at dyes from avocado pits, onion skins, and dried eucalyptus from just sort of floral waste. And in the spring, we had a tree focus, and we looked at cherry tree. This is actually the bark of different types of trees, which is also another sort of waste product that you can get from woodworkers. So looking at cherry, plum, Osage orange, and mulberry. And then in the summer, we did a focus on sort of garden-based, what grows well in our region, looking at Japanese indigo and marigold and Hopi dye sunflower. These are some samples of onion skin dyed wool. And our book, we really took local wools and used those as the basis to create samples. And we see this project as ongoing, as an invitation to people to share their research as people explore alternatives to synthetic-based dyes, aniline dyes. So this is part of the research that we're doing, and we're encouraging our community to share with us.
Next slide.
And this is another of our many projects. So many of the projects that we initiate are, we hope, both educational but community-based, and the means for conversations and to inspire each other to start initiatives that would really inform change within our region. So the Chesapeake Flax project was really inspired by some of the folks that you might see in this picture. In the center is Heidi Barr, who has an amazing initiative called the PA Flax Project in Pennsylvania, and she received quite a hefty grant to support her direction towards producing a local linen cloth in Pennsylvania. And so she's working towards developing harvesting and milling equipment to meet this desire to have local cloth. And the Chesapeake Fibershed people are very excited here too by the idea of creating a local cloth. We have a lot of farms that produce wool, and wool is wonderful to work with, but we do live in a climate that is pretty warm, and so we like to think about how we might source linen cloth, for instance. So we began a project that was inspired by PA Flax, and we had people sign up. We had about 45 participants, and we all grew a small plot of flax. And we learned together how well flax grows in our community. And then we learned how to process flax using artisanal tools. These are processing photos from an event we had at Freetown Farm in Maryland. And yeah, it's been a wonderful project, and we recently had a panel discussion, and Heidi Barr came down to speak to us about her work. And again, it's the Fibershed. We like to think of ourselves as a hub or a gathering place for these conversations towards how we might start initiatives and receive grants towards creating this infrastructure here locally. So I thought the panel discussion was really quite interesting. What do you think, Marianne? It was just last weekend.
There's a lot of interest in flax. It's linen's such a great summer wear item here in this area. So there's a lot of interest. It's just, how do we get there?
How do we get there?
How do we get there?
Yeah.
Age-old question.
That's right.
So that brings us to our next slide, which is we have now done 3 years of a sustainable cloth challenge. And the idea is to travel, feeding along on the Chesapeake watershed theme, traveling along a research stream to either embrace, which everything comes from, fiber or dye that's made within our region. Re-envisioning is about upcycling what you have, and then borrowing, taking what you can't get here and borrowing from someone else. So under these 3 streams, we've had a variety of goods that have been made, and we've featured those every fall. It's been everything from someone who grew a small, I think it was about a yard of cotton in their backyard and had enough cotton that they milled with their pasta machine to make a dishcloth or a face cloth, up to unbelievably beautiful garments made by the Virginia Commonwealth Sustainable Cloth class, senior class, that have re-envisioned, very personal textiles into very beautiful clothing. So, these are 3 streams to travel. It's something that we will continue doing because I think it's important that we use this challenge to reach out and connect over the idea of what is sustainable, and to raise awareness of what can be made locally and used with recycled goods. The next slide. So as we said, on embracing, I didn't realize we put all these in. Basically, it's natural fibers. We really do think that it's important that we think about what we wear. And when you make your goods and you sell to people, letting them understand that there is such a thing as responsible textile use or conscious clothing, is they dress themselves every day. And when we think about it, natural fibers, avoiding plastics, quality over quantity, and keeping clothing in use. These are 4 things that you can tell others about and that we can do ourselves that help us make a responsible choice for our biosphere. Next slide. So like natural fibers, why do we want them? They're biodegradable. They can fit into that soil to soil cycle. It reduces petroleum use. I don't know if most, we did a little bit of research that we saw through the folks at the Smithsonian Eco Fest one year, and this idea that petroleum plastics, those polyester clothes, have a shelf life of over 200 years. They do not compost. They will be around forever. So we want to keep them in use. They're already here, but let's keep them in use as long as possible. That natural fibers also support our local agricultural economies. We have a lot of farmers with some beautiful wool that they cannot sell. They cannot find a market for it. And it's a great way to try to find constructive uses for this rather than wasting it. And then also it reduces our impact on the environment, which is so important for all of us. The next slide, please. So avoiding plastics. I think many of us have heard about microplastics in the oceans all over the internet there are statistics, so sorry, about, that we drink a credit card's worth of plastic fiber every week. That they're everywhere. Microplastics have been found as far north as the Arctic. These are really crazy things to think about, but they're in all of us today. And so by, washing our things in cold water, hanging them to dry, not wearing them, or washing them a lot less, and they exist, but this is something that we should think about as we wear our clothing. Next slide. Quality over quantity. As designers, I think it's important that we make things that can last generations, that we don't bow to a trend, that we can create a trend of wearing natural fibers that are well made. That should be the trend, I think, that we all aspire to. Next slide. And as we say, keeping clothing in use, either, mending, upcycling, swapping clothes, finding ways to make people aware that these are the alternatives and that they're good alternatives. Next slide. And also care, little things, like when you label clothing for sale, how to wash it, what to wash it with, using wool dryer balls, one of my favorites, line drying, lots of ways that we can cut down the impact of our, clothing care. And we put all these in here because as designers, it's a great way, you're in a position to really tell people about these initiatives and these ways of making things better. So next, there are other ways to, also do look at our website and then do read the book by Rebecca Burgess called Fibershed. It's a game changer in the view of many. Become a member. You don't have to be a producer. You can just support what is happening locally. If you can participate in the next Sustainable Cloth Challenge. We do have some events. We do keep a calendar on the webpage. We would love to see you. And then also think if you're making, to buy your fiber and dye from local producers when possible. And just that's about what we are. Kirsten, do you have something to add here?
I just wanted to, I guess just follow up on the Sustainable Cloth Challenge and just really, if we just to look at that as an invitation to share your personal research. And that's, we're going into our 4th year of hosting this challenge. And I would say for many of us, myself included, joining this project has been really sort of the means of taking a deeper dive at something that I might not have done by myself, to do something outside of my comfort zone, whether it's designing or whether sourcing in a different way. So it's really, we call it a challenge because it's a personal challenge, but that personal challenge becomes part of the public discussion. So we end our Sustainable Cloth Challenge with an exhibition and with really a celebration, and we invite people to come and see the textiles that we've made. We have a fashion show. So we try, to find a way to really uplift the projects that we do as a community. And it's important that, that this sort of reach everybody, hopefully. And then in terms of flax, I did want to shout out to a few people that have really been sort of key to like helping. It's not only PA Flax, but Tony Cohen, who works with his farm, Button Farm, an historic farm in Maryland. He has hosted processing events, and as a community, we've grown flax at his farm and shared time comparing different varieties of flax and how they grow. I would also mention Mary Kingsley of Lady Farmer has done a lot to help put this project together. So it's an ongoing project. Again, if you go to our webpage, you can join and get updates to some of the events. So hope that you'll join in.
Is there anything we can answer or?
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much, Marianne and Kristen. All this information is just so wonderful to hear that regionally the resources are out there. And, as you mentioned, having that, those resources to, kind of like sell on the market to like local, local batch designers or, small scale designers or whatnot. That is really crucial there. So I wanted to open it up for questions, and I see there's a lot of lots of comments and questions here, and I'm gonna see if I can read off any of the questions here, or maybe we can just unmute folks. Let me see here. There's a question from Ashley. Okay, so I'm the DC area community organizer. So let me see if I can just unmute Ashley here, and you can ask the question here. Ashley, can you unmute yourself? If not, I can just.
I can see her chat. And Ashley, we would love to collaborate with you. Just write to us at ChesapeakeFibershed@gmail.com and let's see what we can get going.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah, my question would just be for folks who aren't as knowledgeable about, microplastics and sustainable fashion and why natural fabrics and fibers are important. Um, I know that sustainable fashion, especially, designers that make clothing, not always, but frequently it costs more, and it makes 100% sense to me and to a lot of people, but it's hard to compete with the fast fashion machine. So how do you what are some initial steps, if you have any, that you suggest to people who are just starting to learn about the importance of this?
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think what we often tell people, because we do see the cost of locally made goods made with local fibers, people get a little surprised at the cost. And it's hard because not everyone can afford a $300 sweater or more. But part of it is you buy less, but also to tell people, it's not the only way to make an impact on the environment. And part of it is, when we put up the stuff about the carrying of your clothes, you can tell people the small ways that they can make an impact. Focusing on reuse is a way that's a less expensive way for people to actually make that impact. And so that's what we tell folks. I think it's going to take a long time for us to get past the idea that inexpensive clothing, because we all need to clothe ourselves, and and it can't be a judgment on someone. It has to be that you're doing the best you can using the factors. Maybe it's inexpensive, but it's support someone local. I mean, Kirsten, do you have something to add, or Javi?
Yeah, no, I think those are all good points. And I think, again, like celebrating small steps, we might not be able to get 100% where we want to be right now, but we don't have the infrastructure to be that way. I mean, that's where we are. So we have to sort of be supportive, not sort of, we need to be supportive of small steps that we make and celebrate those. And it could be, as simple as, I mean, I'll focus on natural dyeing, but it could be, looking at alternatives to aniline dyes. And we're thinking about that because of not only the health of our planet, the health of our soil, the byproducts of aniline dye processes are, have a tremendous impact on the environment globally. But we're also thinking about, yeah, what we can, these are small changes that we can make, and we can promote them, and I think people will appreciate. And it's the small steps that get us hopefully to the larger whole, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. 100% on that. I think one of your slides mentioned quality over quantity, and I think, buying, sustainable made, garments, or if it's not, thinking, kind of as from the consumer end, like, kind of re-educating, maybe, garment wear, like, the laundry care, also, maybe, buying, basics, your basic staples, classics, like, you're just a navy sweater, and, or something that is versatile, and, like, as far as style wise, like something that you'll, when you go into the department store, you're thinking, oh, okay, is this sweater or this dress shirt, how can I wear it multiple times without, going on Amazon or whatever, and just clicking more of the same, style and different gazillion colors or whatnot. So I think that's it's a step by step learning process for the consumer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I mean, it's that false economy. If we buy lots of cheap, you know,
Mhm.
things, we're spending the same amount as opposed to buying, sort of being um, really careful about where we're purchasing and what we're purchasing and how much we need. And I think a lot of it is, modeling it
Yeah.
and doing it, so that people, and promoting it through our changes,
And through our community.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's another question, and I'd see there's a question about if there's a sign up sheet for the sustainable cloth challenge.
There will be. We just closed our 2024 session on November 3rd. And so in January, we'll be starting in again.
Right.
And it'll be on the website. And if sign up for the newsletter, and it'll be there as well. And we can also pass it on to Javi. So
Yeah, definitely. And as a note, we'll send out the slide deck and point of contacts for the Chesapeake Fibershed for folks here. Also, if anybody does have a question, there's a small, I guess, icon where you can raise your hand. And if you do have either, it doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment too, so this is very casual, no, there's no rules or whatnot. So if anybody does have any, comment or question, please, use the raise hand icon there so we can unmute. And let me see if there's anybody that would like to.
while you're looking, I will ask that, I mentioned that we are working on this directory, and it is live on our website, but it has glitches. So if you go in and use it, please write to me with any comments or feedback you have, because we want this to be working as well for everyone as we can.
Okay, I don't see any hands here. Let me see. Let me go back into the chat here to see if I missed a question here. Oh, there's another question. Okay, sorry. Question from Karina. Has the group been involved in historical reenactment education at all? If so, how many events? Uh, so how many events?
We have not been involved directly in historical reenactment or education groups. We do know that there is a flax maker, Cindy Connor, down in the south of Virginia that has made flax items for some of these. But we have not been going to those.
Okay.
It's been a question of bandwidth. We are an all-volunteer organization.
And are there any initiatives? Also, another different question in relation to the Sustainable Cloth Challenge. Are there any initiatives that are trying to upcycle donated fabrics at scale?
I have heard that the city of Baltimore has recycling bins for textiles only. And just last week, the city of Frederick announced they're going to have a recycle take back day, textile day.
Mm-hmm.
And I should try to find that for you and put that in the chat. But I know, Kristen, can you think of others?
No, I think that's a great one to share.
Okay, let me go here.
You got it. Okay.
Okay. And there's and I think there's also Fab Scrap that was in Philadelphia. I think they're only in New York now, but I think they have dead stock and recycled clothing that they collect as well.
And Marianne, there was a Fiber Fest that the Chesapeake Fibershed hosted a couple weeks ago.
Well, actually, it was last week, November 3rd. We had a fall gathering, and it featured a panel on flax and the viability of production. We do a zero waste potluck where we ask everyone to bring their own utensils and plate rather than use paper. And that was a lot of fun. And then we also had local vendors as well as the fashion show and the display of things that have been made in sustainable cloth.
Okay.
It was a great day. It was up at Shepherd's Hay Farm up in Compass, Maryland, and beautiful weather. Beautiful day.
Any upcoming festivals on the radar?
Our calendar for the next year is not set yet, but the next big festival coming up in our region is the Maryland Sheep and Wool that is on the first weekend in May. Okay. Heartily recommend everyone to go, because if you're not familiar with the process, we will be sponsoring a sheep to shawl team there. And if you've never seen this as a maker, it's an incredible event where they have 3 hours from the time the sheep gets shorn to it gets made into a shawl. And the only thing that they have is I think the loom has already been warped and when they arrive. So it's pretty fabulous to watch.
Okay, fascinating. And that will be on the website, on the Fibershed website. Great.
And it's also a great way to explore the amazing array and diversity of wool fiber that we have in the Chesapeake Fibershed area. So that's certainly a hands-on place to meet the farmers and
the sheep.
And the sheep. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of fun.
Another question came up here in the chat. The location for the in Baltimore for the fiber recycling. You
Let me
mentioned,
look
was
at.
that Fab Scrap in Philly?
No,
Or,
it's done by the city of
oh,
Baltimore,
okay.
and I believe they have one bin at Shady Grove Metro. But let me look it up.
Okay.
And everyone will know I'm terrible at quick research. Okay, it's the Baltimore City of Public Works. It's available at the Department of Public Works residential drop-off centers in Baltimore. If you put in Public Works, let me just get that in the chat.
Okay. And then another question for both ReFashion and the Chesapeake Fibershed. Do you keep resources list of sustainable tools and supplies? We ReFashion, we don't have a resource list. We actually have the DC Department of Energy and Environment that has a resource or actually a sustainable business registry for DC-based local businesses to that are practicing sustainability in their businesses, and it's not it's geared for all industries, not just apparel. But for the Chesapeake Fibershed, Marian, if you'd like to answer that question.
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. Would you repeat it?
Oh yeah. If does Chesapeake Fibershed keep a resource list of sustainable tools and supplies?
We have, as far as tools and supplies, I think if you're talking about like looms or anything like that, we have a couple woodworkers who make tools, and they're on, one of them is a producer on our website. We don't have a list of sustainable ones, but that's certainly a good thing to think about.
Right.
Yeah, and then there is the map of local resources that Miriam was talking about. So you can go on there and see closer, what's available locally and how things are being how the sheep are being raised, et cetera, et cetera. So practices, hopefully are available to explore. And there's also other resources on our webpage, like upcycling resources are there, natural dye resources. Each of the plants that we've explored thus far have there's writing and sort of general recipes available there. And any question that one has about accessing something, you can send us a question and we'll go to town to
Trying
help
to find it.
connection. That's what we like to do.
Right, and I've dropped the link to our sister agency's sustainable business program. So that is different from ReFashion's initiative in so far as focusing on just the sustainability areas that the initiative focuses on, and providing small business resources like technical assistance, networking, things like these events like this, and access to capital for the business. These the Department of Energy and Environment's webpage is in the link there, and it have a more of a overall bigger view of helping, again, not just fashion related or fashion or apparel businesses, but also other industries like food businesses and other, industries. But you can take a look there. There is a sustainable business registry if you want to become a member of that. And there is I think, an application there that you can go through there. And let me see before we close out the lunch and learn if there's any other questions here.
If I could just add, in terms of resources and tools, if people are interested in connecting with their local fiber guilds, that's also a way to access looms and all kinds of things. They usually have lending, tools which can be lent to members. So that's just another access point.
Yeah. And I'm also would be remiss if I did not mention our DC Public Library. DCPL has a mending upcycling class, or at the flagship library, the MLK Junior Memorial Library. It's called the Fab Lab, and they have sewing machines, cutting boards, everything, all free. You can just sign up on their website. So they have that available resource for folks there. So yeah. Okay. Any last words?
I see where Ashley mentioned that they're doing a holiday clothing swap in DC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
And I'm not sure if there is a fiber guild in DC.
It's not, they don't have their meetings within DC, but it's called the Potomac Fiber Arts Guild.
Okay.
And they do cover this whole region, the DC metro area.
Okay. And it's called the Potomac Fiber
Arts Guild.
Arts Guild. Got it. Okay. Wow. And okay, there's also the DC Makers Guild. Yes, the DC Makers Guild is I think just launched a couple of years ago. It's really recent. Well, also what I'll do is I'll try to list all the resources here that everybody shared, and in the follow-up email for folks to research and connect with those entities there. So much information here that we can go on and on, but it's been great to have both Marian and Kirsten here. And appreciate the invaluable resources that the Chesapeake Fibershed is providing, and hopefully our ReFashion designers here in DC can connect with the resources that would be available there. So yeah, Marian or Kristen, any last words?
Just thank you all for being here. It's so great to connect to more folks that are interested in sustainable fashion.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been lovely sharing a moment, a lunchtime moment.
Thank you for having us, Javi.
Right, no worries. Thank you. Okay, I will stop the recording. Thank you so much.